Hey guys, my name's Justin and welcome to Hellsborough, where we care about the design behind designer luxury. And if you do too, make sure you subscribe right there. So for today's video, we have another Battle Royale. So if you're new to this channel, a Battle Royale is basically like brackets. It's like March Madness, where you pit two, and two, so 8 bags total, but you're pitting bags against each other. Whoever wins makes it to the next round, and then eventually it gets down to like the final 2, which is like the finals. And then those do get out. And all the things that I take into account are things like the design, looking at how it's been affected by the brand or how it just affected the brand, and just taking like a deeper look into the bag besides just how it looks. But of course we talk about look as well. Okay, so the theme of today's Battle Royale is natural fibers. I thought it'd be fun to do one of these for some of the seasonal bags that are, I think, super cute right now. What some of these brands have done, turning some of their either well-known or iconic, just generally like already existing bag styles, but then adding this kind of like natural fiber twist to them. A, like that's an interesting twist on all these bags already, and B, why not make them fight? So for today's competitors, we have the Loewe Flamenco, the Bottega Mini Pouch, the Celine Classic, the Dior Book Tote, the Prada Re-Edition, the Stella McCartney Falabella, the Saint Laurent Loewe, and the Loewe Hammock. Alright, so let's get started.
Round 1, Match 1, Loewe Flamenco versus Bottega Veneta Mini Pouch. Fight!
To start, I thought I would talk about the original bag first, and then we'll talk about how it's been affected by natural fibers. So the Loewe Flamenco is this very like supple like sack of leather. Okay, that sounds a little gross, but it's this beautiful like clutch where it has these like leather knots that you pull to actually help act as like a bit of a closure for the bag. And then looking at the natural fiber version, it's actually pretty similar. So we have this woven fiber bag that's still the same shape of the regular flamenco, but then this version is super fun because it's like a black and white stripe, which like for me these thick chunky stripes, thick and chunky, are very much tied to like beach like swimsuits or like those beach tents you see in pictures. But then the great thing is that it still has like the leather rope with like the leather knots to like help with the closure. And one thing I do actually really like about this bag is that it is unlined, because then you can kind of see the way that the rope is like woven in and out. So for me, it is a quite beautiful bag. And then the Bottega Mini Pouch, for me, like the shape of it kind of reminds me of like a certain piece of anatomy that some people have, which, let me step away from that before I get deleted or canceled or whatever. But basically it's another clutch, but then it has this like hinge opening. What I think is really cool is that Bottega Veneta has done like so many like different colors of this, and then for them to do it in raffia I think is really interesting as well. The way that they wove the raffia on this bag, it doesn't really remind me of raffia. It almost looks like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like AstroTurf or something, or like the backside of AstroTurf if you have ever seen it. It's kind of just like knotted fibers, but not in the way that I'm like used to seeing raffia, and I think that's really interesting. This one does have the same like calfskin lining, so that's like a really huge plus if you wanted a little bit more heft for your bag. And then it is nice because it does come in some bright-ish colors. I know this one comes in parakeet, although it doesn't read as the typical parakeet, but it still does have that kind of like vibrant kind of look that I know is important for some people. But then if we're gonna compare the two, I think, sure, like the mini pouch is really interesting. It still has like the calfskin lining, so it feels more like a proper bag. But I think because Bottega Veneta does so many iterations and so many different colors and so many different materials, it almost makes it seem like less exciting. And the fact that the flamenco, there's just something about the way that it was not only raffia, but it's unlined, so you can kind of see the construction of it. And then the fact that it's done in a black and white stripe to really give that kind of beachy feel, I think is like super strong. So I think for this round, it definitely is gonna go to Loewe Flamenco.
Winner, Loewe Flamenco. Round 1, match 2.
Celine Classic
Versus Dior Book Tote. Fight!
And then we have the Celine Classic, which is kind of funny because when I think of the Celine Classic, you think of like this box bag, and it's this very like formal looking bag. So for them to do it in a raffia, I think is a little tongue-in-cheek, which I enjoy. It does have the same like click hardware that the regular classic bags have. And of course this bag is lined in leather and it has a strap. It's basically, this one is for sure like the same bag as like all the other ones. There's not much construction change. It even has like the calfskin trim. I don't know, it's really interesting to get like this kind of like, oh yeah, this is like one of our like most popular bags, but then just in this like, I think atypical material. And then we have the Dior Book Tote, which, like I said, atypical material for the Celine Classic, but this to me is insane. The normal book tote, it's this like really heavily embroidered bag. Starting out, it's very stiff and very structured. Of course, it like wears down a little with time, but then what they have done with this bag, I think, is such an interesting translation of what the book tote normally does. Normally, you see different color and pattern from the book tote based on the different threads that they use when they embroider. But then for the natural fiber one, where they used raffia, of course, like they could have done different colors, and they do some different colors in there as well. But what I find so interesting is that they actually added texture by the way that they wove it. The fact that they like wove this natural fiber into the canage pattern, I think is really interesting. It kind of like plays with the house code of canage, which is normally like matelassé, like puffy kind of like quilting, but then instead you're giving the texture by weaving the lines in. And I don't know, it's super cool. I think in this matchup we're seeing kind of the same thing that we saw in the last matchup, where it's like this really like popular bag and they're just really just changing the material of it. And then for the Dior Book Tote, they're like, how can we actually like change it up and like add a little twist? And of course, like if you know me, you know I love a good twist when it comes to these like core bags. So for me, clear winner here is definitely the Dior Book Tote.
Winner, Dior Book Tote. Round 1, match 3.
Prada Re-Edition
versus
Stella McCartney
Falabella. Fight!
So for the re-edition, of course we know that Prada loves to use, you know, more like materials that you wouldn't consider luxury. The re-edition is very well known to be a nylon, and then it even has like a nylon webbing strap, and it's very this like technical material, technical fabric kind of bag. So for them to kind of flip it and do this very like soft, almost flirty, very, I mean, the re-edition is very casual, but this is casual in like a different way. For them to create it in this raffia where it has these little swirls in the way that it's woven, I think is so interesting. And then having the little pouch as well as the bigger pouch both be in the matching materials, which of course it needed to be like that, but for them to kind of treat it in that way, I think is very charming. Of course, the crossbody strap, it matches, it's very tonal, and it's kind of like the champagne-y nylon webbing. I think one of the strengths too is that you still get a bit of that nylon in the way that it's lined with it. So for the Falabella, I mean, Stella McCartney's bags, they're always vegan. It's always gonna be vegan no matter what. But for this bag, I think it's just kind of funny because when you have the typical Falabella, I don't want to say it's plasticky because it's not, but it is like, you can tell the difference between like that bag and a real leather bag. But then for them to kind of basically take the same framework and then just use another vegan material, I think is really smart, actually. I think there's like a little bit of humor in it as well. Not necessarily in the way that it's woven or anything like that, but just like the actual comparison of the constructions where you have like, yes, it's a vegan leather versus, yes, this is straw. I don't know. There's something about it that is really charming. And the fact that they can kind of still stay true to vegan bags, super plus plus. And then the fact that their chains are still in like this mixed metal coloration, I love it. But then, comparing them, of course these are both vegan bags, but like the Prada re-edition is this very like iconic thing, and for them to kind of like remove the context of like, yes, iconic Prada nylon, and for them to make it out of raffia, the way that they strip the context while still keeping the structure and then just put on the straw. Like, I do think that the Falbella is beautiful, but for me this bag is just so weird looking that like I'm just immediately drawn to it. So definitely it's gonna be the Prada re-edition.
Winner, Prada re-edition. Round 1, match 4. Saint Laurent Loop versus Loewe Hammock. Fight.
So talking about the Loewe bag, I know it is a super popular bag shape. It's basically just a camera bag. It has that kind of like rounded rectangular shape with like a long crossbody strap. And it's not a shape for me personally, but I do think that, you know, I see people walking around with that, or like the Marc Jacobs camera bag shape. Like the way that Saint Laurent kind of like translated it into this natural fiber version is really interesting. So like the fact that it still is like calfskin all the way around on the sides, top and bottom, but then the front and the back, it's kind of like they just slap raffia on. I mean, it's definitely not a bad design decision, because then you're getting that nice contrast of like the smooth calfskin versus the like rough and textured raffia. I think that's quite smart actually, and I actually think I like this bag better than like the regular Loewe bag. But for me, when we're getting into like the fact that it has like the gross grain lining and things like that, I think these are just like nice little touches that help like up this bag as well. And then now talking about the hammock, if you know me at all, you know I love Loewe. But the hammock bag is not really one that's been on my radar for me personally. I know a lot of people, you know, it's kind of like a love-hate thing with that one. With the traditional hammock, it's either all leather, or I think some of the ones where the sides are canvas are cute too, but it's this kind of like weird convertible tote type shape. Then the idea there is like those sides of the bag, they replaced it with raffia, but then the way that they wove it I find is so interesting. The way that it's kind of like open and see-through, and this bag is unlined. I think it's interesting when you actually compare these two bags, because when you look at it, it is like they strategically replaced a piece of leather or whatever material with raffia. So you get this really interesting mix of like calfskin and a natural fiber. The way that Loewe did it though is by not making it just this solid panel and adding like a little bit of this like airy feeling by having it have some holes. I don't know, for me it makes it kind of like a perfect summer bag. So, okay, well it's obviously who won now, it's the Loewe hammock.
Winner, Loewe hammock.
Alright, so that is the first round done already. Amazing. I don't know, of course we're gonna get here. Well, let's get started with the second round. And the matchups we have are the Loewe Flamenco versus the Dior book tote, and the Prada re-edition versus the Loewe hammock.
Semi-final, match 1, Loewe Flamenco versus Dior book tote. Fight.
The Loewe Flamenco bag, like I said before, it is very beachy. I think when you're looking at a clutch, for me, one of the things I think of is like how comfortable is it going to be to carry. And like, yes, raffia is beautiful, and I know like it can be woven in a way that makes it pretty soft, but then I almost wonder like having it be mainly a clutch and having this texture like constantly like in contact with your hands, it makes me like feel kind of iffy. But I do love the look of it, because I don't know, I'm just obsessed with those chunky stripes. Thick and chunky. And then we take a look at the book tote. Again, there's no like multiple ways of carrying it. It's just gonna be like that strap, and I think you can probably put it on your shoulder, or at least it'll fit on the crook of your elbow. But looking at the Dior book tote, where they like created this texture by using the weaving pattern, I think comparing the two of them. I mean, if you know me, you know like I prefer like an actual structural or like physical change rather than just like a color or a print or something like that. So for me, I think, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this, but for me, I think it's Dior. It's the book tote. That's the winner.
Winner, Dior book tote. Semi-final, match 2, Prada re-edition versus Loewe Flamenco. Fight.
Alright, so the re-edition for me, when you're looking at the fact that it basically is just the bag, even down to the fact that it still has like the nylon lining, I do think that those are actually really strong qualities for the bag. And to me, it adds to the value because then you have a little bit more of a more complex construction. It's almost as if it's just a normal bag and then you just like this kind of like summery material on it. And then comparing that to the Loewe hammock, I just really find the open weave of the raffia on the hammock very charming. And for me, it's actually a strength that that bag is unlined because then you get kind of like that airiness, that breeziness, not just in the look way, which of course like look because it is open, but then like that kind of feel too because then you have air going in and out of your bag. I don't know what kind of benefit that would bring, but for me there's just this kind of like romantic feeling of it where like if I were to carry it on a boardwalk or a promenade or whatever you call it and wherever you are, where like the ocean breeze like can go in and out of your bag, I think there's like a certain beauty to that that maybe the Prada re-edition doesn't have, while it has strengths in other ways. Because we're talking about these like natural fiber, it's not really the most like practical material in a way. I think why not like amplify it and go up to 11 when it comes to this like dreamy romantic feeling. So then I guess for me that's why the Loewe hammock wins.
Winner, Loewe Flamenco.
Alright, semifinals are already done. Cool. Okay, I'm really excited to actually jump into the finals. So the finals we have are the Dior book tote versus the Loewe hammock.
Final, Dior book tote versus Loewe Flamenco. Fight.
Alright, so let's break these two bags down. Both of these bags use a natural fiber in a way that the original materials couldn't really accomplish. And I mean that in like the most interesting way possible. For the Dior book tote, I kind of talked about it before, but the way that they added texture using raffia is something that really couldn't be done using textile or embroidery techniques. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of texture when you're embroidering using thread, but because thread is so small, I think it would have to be an insane amount of like layering of embroidery to almost an impossible thickness to achieve any sort of texture like that. I love that they kind of like flipped one of the house codes of the canage pattern. I think that's really smart. And then on the other side, we have the hammock bag, which, because it has this open weave, it has that kind of romanticism I've been talking about. Of course, like, sure, like leather and canvas can have like punch outs or holes or something like that, but it's just not the same. Sure, you are changing the texture of the bag if you're just punching out or cutting out a hole in like those heavier materials, but the way that this raffia is done is it specifically is woven into this pattern so that these holes occur very purposefully. Like it has to be planned out, thought. Those parts right there, the way that both of these bags used their materials in a way that wouldn't be possible with the regular materials, already both of these bags are amazing. Alright, so let's just take a look at like the way that these bags look. I'll explain. So the Dior book tote, if I see like a natural fiber bag that's like a tote, instantly I'm like, oh, beach tote, perfect. But then the Dior book tote is so structured and has these very like hard lines, not just from the actual shape of the bag, it's a box, but then also like creating these like straight lines using the canage. It makes it almost feel like a little bit too formal for the beach, although like that would be an absolute flex to carry this bag on the beach. Well, and of course you can't just like leave it in the sand because then what if someone steals it, blah, 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 whatever. But then you have the hammock bag, which of course it has like the calfskin folding around it and it's just like the sides that have the raffia. But I think that's a strength. I like the mix of materials because then it doesn't feel like it's too much like this like just a straw bag or whatever, right? You have a little bit of like structure and body to it using a different material. This bag isn't very beachy, but it is summery. But I would say that you almost don't need to always carry it during summer. Like I think you could still flex it to spring, or if you want to be kooky, you could wear it during winter, I guess. But for me, the fact that the hammock bag is also just a more versatile bag. It has a strap, it has handles, it has multiple ways to carry it. When you add it all up, of course, like the Dior book tote is extremely beautiful in the way that they created this texture. And then the hammock bag is so amazing in the way that this open weave mixed with the calfskin. I don't know, both of these bags are amazing, but I think when you get down to it, it's almost like down to the base. Is the bag versatile? Does it have like a really integral core concept to it? And I think the Dior book tote, of course, it has an amazing concept behind it, but then it doesn't have that versatility. And then you look at the hammock bag, and of course the base of that bag is versatility, and then the layer on top of that is that concept of like, yes, like this is a strange shape that we've had to weave out of raffia. But not only did we make it out of raffia, but we also planned all of these openings and holes so that it has this like breeziness to it. I mean, I guess really like that's making the decision for me. I think really the winner is, it has to be the Loewe hammock.
Champion, Loewe hammock.
Thinking back now, I don't think any of my Battle Royales have had Loewe as the winner, which is surprising because Loewe is my favorite brand. Yeah. So this is the first win for Loewe, so you know, I don't know what I'm doing. That felt natural, so I just did it. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not surprised because it's Loewe, but I'm also surprised that this is the first time Loewe has won one. I mean, when you look at the bag, like, it's not my favorite bag shape, and it really is not for me. Honestly, me personally, I would probably get the book tote over it. But let me know, what do you think? Do you think the Dior book tote should have won? Do you think any of the other ones should have won? Or do you think there's even bags that I missed that should have made the list that could have won it? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. But that's all I have for you today. Please make sure to like and subscribe. It lets me know that you like this kind of content and that you too care about design behind designer luxury. Until next time, pew pew. Finger guns.